Gang, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of the Fishing Teacher, and thanks for checking out today's video. Much appreciated. And guys, today we're going to give you guys sort of a basic foundation on how weather affects fish, and just sort of maybe give you tips and advice on how you can deal with that under different weather conditions, because one of the things about fishing you're going to find out is it's always changing with the weather conditions. Weather has a huge impact on sort of like the mood and the personality of the fish, and how aggressive the fish are, or how willing they are to chase a lure very far or not. So there's a lot of complexities to this, guys, because you got, in addition to weather, you've got all the other variables that go in with the weather, as far as like the lake conditions. You got the water temperature, the water clarity, the time of year. That's all part of the mix that goes in with different type of weather systems that go around. So I wanted to sort of just give you guys, you know, here on the Fishing Teacher, just sort of a foundation. If you're not real familiar with it, that might sort of give you an idea, because there's really no absolutes. It's like, when I talk about this, it's not like it's set in stone, but it's a pretty much, it's a good general guideline to go by if you're just starting out. So, okay, let's talk about the some of the basic stuff, like cold fronts. Cold fronts have a big impact on fish, especially if that water temperature is sort of in that range between 50 and 70 degrees. If the water temperature is below 50 degrees, or if it's above, say, 70, 75 degrees, a cold front doesn't have as big of an effect. There's something about that temperature range that they do. Normally what happens is, prior to a cold front, you know, coming in, you got a falling barometric pressure. You start to get some cloud cover. It could be varying degrees of cloud cover. Your wind is generally out of a predominant southerly or southwest airflow with that, and your humidity levels are a little bit higher. Now, these factors combine together, especially when you have some thicker cloud cover conditions, it makes the fish a little bit more aggressive. And in general, right before a cold front comes in, and you've got the increased cloud cover and the increased wind, normally fishing is pretty good. And what happens during that is, you know, fish are more active, they chase lures further. If you have a heavy overcast or rainy condition, it's always going to make the fish chase more if you have the water temperatures in those range. So let's say, for example, if water temperature 70 degrees and you have a cloudy day and it's sort of misty, rainy, that's a good day to pick up a moving bait like a spinnerbait or a crankbait or topwater, because those fish are a lot more apt to chase. Now, after a cold front comes through, there's a couple different scenarios with that too. Generally, after a cold front comes through, your sky, you lose your clouds. Not all the time, but a lot of times you lose your clouds. The wind generally switches directions to out of the north or the northwest. It can be of varying degrees of speed, just depending upon the front. Humidity levels are a little bit lower, and in general, fishing gets tougher. The increased light intensity that comes after a front comes through, and the falling humidity, it positions fish a little bit tighter to cover. So usually after a cold front comes through, guys, you want to start to fish a little bit slower, like do finesse presentations like a shaky head or a jig or a plastic worm, something you can work on the bottom, because the fish don't really want to chase quite as much with that. Now, wind has another impact too, because wind really can activate fish or turn fish off, again, based upon the water clarity and the water temperature. And the general rule of thumb, guys, goes, the warmer the water and the clearer the water, the more wind helps. The more wind will activate the fish and make them bite better. But the dirtier the water is, say the water is stained or muddy, and if it's colder, the wind is a negative. You don't want wind. The wind makes it tough to bite, to catch fish. And normally, if it's colder water and dirtier water, you don't want near as much wind with that. So let that sort of be a dictating factor there too. But one of the things that will help you out, guys, is sort of become a little amateur meteorologist. I mean, wind or temperature, weather has a huge impact on how you want to approach the day, especially if you're dealing with wind, because depending upon the degree of wind, it can make certain parts of a body of water better than others. So just, you know, it's a long process about learning about how weather affects fish. That sort of gives you guys some basic guidelines with it. And it's a lifelong process that we're always studying. So anyway, I hope it helps out. We'll talk later.